Like I say, he got in there double teamed Thursday, but he won't double team today. I don't know what's wrong with him. Let me say again, glad to have you out. Glad to be back out in church. I am. Seems like it's been a month since we've been here. You know, I believe the Lord wants us to do what we know to do, best we can, and then let Him do the rest. Now, I figured out that when you do what you know to do, God is always there to pick up where you can't go, what you can't do. And folks, I've been reading this Bible and studying this Bible and trying to follow after the Lord for a lot of years. And I've never seen a time when so much was coming together at one time as I see right now, folks. You know, the Bible's been ridiculed. It's been thrown out. God's been kind of mocked and thrown out. But you know what? His word still stands, and it's still fulfilling, like it or not. I tell folks, you don't have to believe it. You're going to live it. You're going to live in it anyway. Believe it or not, folks, it's coming. And I want us to look at a little bit this morning over in the 13th chapter of Revelation. And this is the revelation of Jesus Christ. John said it was given to John, but this is what Jesus knew was coming. So I think we can stand on that. What do you think? Man's a spiritual being, folks, and it was God's Spirit breathed into Adam that first gave Adam life. And as long as man allowed that Spirit to guide him, man and God walked in perfect harmony. But when Adam left the Spirit of God and took the fruit from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he began to be led by another spirit that was leading him into total destruction. We was talking about a while ago about so many people on drugs, and that's the devil too, folks. When we're not following God, we're following a spirit that is bent on our destruction. But he never tells us about the destruction. He tells us about the joy and the high of the moment. But the devil, he doesn't like you this morning. He doesn't like man at all. But when Adam traded the Spirit of God for the spirit of the devil, then Adam and the seed after Adam began to walk in the path of destruction, folks. And if God had not returned that Spirit, and sometimes we miss this, but Jesus told them when after the resurrection, He said, "Tarry here in Jerusalem till you be endued with power from on high." And on that first Pentecost after the resurrection, God put the Spirit of God back into man. And it's the same Spirit He breathed into Adam, folks. God ain't got two or three spirits that He does two or three different things with. The same Spirit that He breathed into Adam that caused Adam to be connected to God is the same Spirit that fell on that first Pentecost after Christ's resurrection and filled that 120 in that upper room so that they too could understand and follow back after God. And without that Spirit, folks, eventually all men would have followed deception. All of us. God would have lost all creation without His Spirit in man. See, it's not about us. It's not. We can't get smart enough to know. We can't study enough to know. We have to depend on God if we're going to know the things of God. Only the Spirit of God can know the things of God. This flesh mind can't know the things of God without that Spirit, folks. But God is a Spirit, and the enemy, the devil, folks, works in the spiritual. And God's Spirit and Satan's Spirit has moved through time with intent and purpose from the time Adam fell, working toward a final end of this thing. Satan wants to destroy all men. So he can't destroy God, so he's trying to destroy God's image, which God made you in and me. But they've moved through time and to this place that we're at now, folks. Just as sure as God's Spirit is trying to give man life, the enemy's spirit is out there trying his best to trap them in eternal death. And that's all the enemy has to offer man is death. And yet man will deny God's Spirit and follow that Spirit. But John the Revelator, and like I said, he wrote Revelation, but it was the revelation of Jesus Christ. And in the 13th chapter, he said this, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet was like the feet of a bear, and his mouth is the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Now, Revelation is wrote symbolically, and these beasts that John saw coming up out of the sea, Daniel saw these same beasts in his prophecy, and they were empires that Daniel saw rising up, and he saw them separated. I believe it's in Daniel 7, but they were separated there. But John saw them all together under one ruler. And see, from the very beginning, folks, and let me tell you something, the devil ain't got no new ideas. He's got old ideas, and he always tries to mimic God's ideas. Do you know God's idea from the beginning was to have a one world government? He is. But the devil is trying to build a one world government totally opposite of God. So John saw these empires that Daniel saw rising up through time as different empires. He saw them all together under one head. It's a political head. The first beast is the head of a global unity of nations, and the Bible calls him Antichrist, calls him the little horn, calls him the Assyrian. He is the embodiment of all that Satan is. What Christ is to God, the Antichrist will be to Satan. He will be following Satan in every aspect. And folks, we see these things come together. Everything ain't just happening all at once by accident. It's a plan, and it's coming together. But thank God for Jesus that he had a plan, and he has the power to see that it's going to work. But these things are coming, folks. These are coming. But as you go on down in Revelation and read that whole chapter there. But there's a second beast, verse 11. John said this, and these, like I say, John calls them beasts. They're symbolic. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as the dragon. Now, how many knows that lambs don't have horns? But the lamb is what is symbolic of Christ. But the horns in the Bible oftentimes are used as symbols of power. And John saw this thing come up, and he looked like Jesus, just looking at him, and he had two horns. Now, sometimes we get the idea that this political leader, the Antichrist himself, is the one that's going to cause the mark. But it's not the political leader that causes people to be marked. It's the religious leader that causes them to be marked to show that they are following the political leader. And oftentimes, folks, when we think of deception, we think of something that's just so terrible that everybody can see. Now, if everybody could see it, it wouldn't be deception. But man being a spiritual being, folks, the devil understands if you can work in man's spirit, you can capture him hook, line, and sinker. And nothing makes man more passionate than when they believe that what they're doing is orchestrated by God. Nothing. You see, Islam, they're willing to blow up their own children because they believe that's orchestrated by God. So the Antichrist and Satan, he understands that to capture the world, to capture them mind, soul, and body, that he needs them to believe that they're doing God's favor. Do you remember when Jesus said in the end time that there'd come a time when men would kill you and think they was doing God's favor? Well, this is what's building, folks. This is what's building right now. But the Spirit of God and the Spirit of Satan has never been bound in time, but it has moved throughout all time, come to where we're at right now. Now, at verse 13, there tells us about this leader that had these two horns. He looked like Jesus, folks, the Lamb. Now, when Jesus came along and established his church, and Jesus did establish a church, folks. He never built a building; he established a church. And when we started believing that the building was the church, is where we got off on the wrong foot. You're the church. If you're walking after Jesus, if you're born again this morning, you are the church. And whatever building you're sitting in, you're still the church. If you're following after Jesus, if you're born again, and if you're not, you can sit in all the religious buildings in America and still not be the church. But Jesus established his doctrine, and when he established it with truth and on love, folks, with God as number one in all things. That was what the foundation of the church was built on, truth and love, with God ruling over all things. So here comes the second beast with two horns, building it on what looks like truth and love. And everywhere you look today, folks is talking about loving. Don't be judgmental, just love people. And my God, at the things done in the name of love, folks. Love does not kill people. Love does not try to destroy other folks. Love does not judge people. They don't kill babies. But it's all done, you know. You can see that it's because this spirit is coming along, and it's telling folks, hey, this is God's want, what God would want. Now in 325 A.D., and you can go back and look at this. This is history. You can go back and look at this. In 325 A.D., the doctrine established by Christ was covered over by a new doctrine established by a Roman emperor called Constantine, who said that he was a Christ follower. And so it began a move away from the Scripture to a doctrine that promised man heaven on his own terms. And so it moved us right into this day, folks. Now, Constantine started out saying, hey, we're following Jesus. And in 325 A.D., when they had the first Council of Nicaea, if you go back and read your history, it'll say this. They come together, and he gathered all the religious leaders that he could get to come, and he said, we're going to establish a religion that everybody could be a part of. And they tell me that Constantine went down and baptized his whole army. Most of them was pagan and didn't know a thing about Jesus. But he baptized them and said, you're a Christian. And that spirit has moved right into today. Right into today. You go to church, you're a good person, hey, you Christian. No, folks, unless you know Jesus, you are not Christian. And let me put it a little narrower than that. Unless you know this Jesus, you're not Christian. And I say so much called Christian. And folks, when we call stuff Christian that's not Christian, we're adding to the deception. Don't you be calling some Christian that is totally against Christ. If it's against what the doctrine of Christ, what is laid out in this book, it is not Christian. It's the spirit of deception. And that's what's gathering together, and that's what's going to bring this second beast of Revelation into being. That's what we're seeing happening right now. Heaven without changing. In the time of Jesus, folks, when he was here, and there was a lot of pagan religions. And they just called them pagan. If they wasn't following after God, hey, they were just pagan religions. But to bring all the religions together, you know, the spirit of Satan had to do away with that separation. So that's what he's trying to do. Buddhist and Islam or whatever now, hey, it's all a path to God. You got all these New Age gurus that'll tell you many ways to heaven. There's many ways to heaven. And then they'll turn right around and say we're Christian. No, folks, there's one way to heaven, and his name is Jesus. And so anything that tries to get your eyes off of him onto something else, just walk on. It ain't even no use arguing with the devil. Just walk on. If it doesn't teach Jesus as the only way of salvation, then it's that spirit of deception trying to bring you into this. And it's coming, folks, and it's coming quickly. And this second beast that you see is a religious leader that will bring all the religions into one, into one agreement. And you know, several years ago, the UN established a council on religion to do exactly that, to make all religions into one. But let me tell you something, folks. And I think that's our problem sometimes. We call it the Christian religion. No, there is a religion that calls itself Christian. But true Christianity is not a religion. It's not a religion at all. Religion is a faith in a God. Christianity, true Christianity, is faith in the God. The God. There's just one. There's just one. So the Antichrist spirit in the remade church that came in under Constantine began to raise up leaders who taught There was many ways to God, and it has progressed and grown to where we are at today. But the Bible warned us about these things. Paul told Timothy, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust." In other words, whatever they're doing, they won't change it. They won't endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust, they shall heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they shall turn their ears away from the truth, and shall be turned into fables. We have, today we have those in the we call them prosperity teachers. And let me tell you this, God wants you to prosper. He doesn't want you to prosper just so you'll be rich. He wants you to prosper so that you'll have the means to carry the kingdom to those that don't know. But so often today we got so many of the prosperity preachers that the focus is on them. It's all about getting me rich. I saw the other day where this guy, and he's got a worldwide ministry, was worth $2 billion. That's with a B. $2 billion. How do you sit on $2 billion and have so many hurting people around you? How do you do that and still be serving God, folks? God wants you to prosper, and He don't care how rich you get. But hey, when $2 billion, and I guarantee you there's people in His congregation that's hurting. See? But anytime you hear folks begin to focus on the messenger instead of the message, it's the spirit of deception, because it's all about the message, not the messenger. We have got a lot of that going on. They have turned the gospel into a get-rich-quick scheme. Now, but if it ain't always about God, folks, if it's not about God, everything, then it's about self. And anytime the devil can get yourself in the way, then he's got you. Then he's got you. And today we've got what I call social gospel. And you hear, that's the fastest growing religion in America, is the social gospel, and they call itself Christian. But what the social gospel does is whatever society is accepting, they accept. And like they do like Constantine, they bring it in and say, you can be Christian, you don't have to change, you can do this, you can. And it's usually led by young, charismatic men, highly educated, well-spoken, and it's the fastest growing segment of the Christianity, or what's called Christianity in America. And they're so sweet, folks. Most of them, and they teach a sweet gospel. You can just go on like you are. It don't make any difference. You ain't got to change because God loves you. Yeah, God loves you. You ain't got. He don't expect you to change anything in your life because He just loves you. It's a social gospel. If you're a homosexual, you can go ahead and be homosexual. Hey, God loves you. He's going to take you on into heaven. If you want to kill your baby, you can kill your baby because God loves you. He's going to take you right on into heaven. They teach the gospel so sweet, I guarantee you any of the gospel salt would melt them like a snail. It would. They had to find them a little hiding place to cry. You hurt their little feelings. And I know some. And they can, they talk good. They talk a good message, but it's all to appeal to the flesh man. Folks, and God is a spirit. What did Jesus say about it? He said, they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. Let me tell you something. God cares a whole lot more about the condition of your spirit than He does whether or not you're happy in the flesh. Yeah, He wants to give you joy, but hey, I was happy in the flesh before I found Jesus. And a lot of folks won't tell you that either. Hey, they won't tell you how bad sin is, and sin is bad. It'll kill you. It'll absolutely kill you. But the devil can package sin to where sin will be fun for a while. Hey, if sin wasn't fun, everybody wouldn't be doing it. It's fun to be out there and doing all these things in the flesh. But when you look at the end result, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. But we've brought that into the church. And I told you, I had a youth pastor here. It's been a while back now. And he told me, he said, I got a guy in my class that is a practicing homosexual. He said, but I don't ever say anything about it because he knows he's a homosexual, and I know he's a homosexual, so there ain't no use to saying anything about it. Well, there ain't no use to condemning him. They isn't. But there is some use to telling him about a Jesus that can deliver you from that which is going to kill you. Hey, there's some use in that. And if you can't do that, you ought to step out from being a youth pastor or any kind of pastor. But these are the social gospel. And it's got, and It's got very large today, and it is the same spirit that's going to bring the second beast of Revelation into being. The foundation is being laid even as we speak, folks. And he has got to come, and I mean, it's got to happen so that he can point the religious world to the Antichrist. And I guarantee you the Antichrist is already ready to take his place. And it's the foundation principle for the second beast who will cause the world to worship the Antichrist and accept him as God. See, the Bible tells us that he will sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So this spirit of the second beast, it's got to change who God is, folks, so that folks will believe that Antichrist is God. Change the personality of God. And isn't it something that the mark of the beast is 666, and the number of man is 6? So man is a three-part being. He's body, spirit, and soul. And the Antichrist, folks, will appeal to everything that's worldly man. He'll appeal to the spirit, to the body, to the soul, everything, see. And this second beast, this religious leader, will tune everybody into believing that the Antichrist is God. But to do that, he's got to do away with who the real God is. And folks, I heard a guy reading the platform of the Democratic Party. Some of y'all may have heard this. Levin, everybody knows who Mark Levin is? And he had it on a paper and he just read out what they had said. And one of the things was that they would prosecute all hate crimes, especially, listen to this now, religious hate crimes. You know what that means? That means, hey, if you speak up against anything that they're for, you're a hater and will be prosecuted. So that's we'll change who God is. If you don't accept what we tell you, you can't be a church. And for years the move has been on trying to make the Bible hate crime. And these people will tell you it's just filled with hate. No, it's filled with love. It's filled with love. We don't hate people around here, folks. If you're a Christian, you can't hate people, but you must hate the sin that's killing them. How can I say that I love people and not hate the sin that's killing people? How can I do that? But that is what's happening. The only ones in days coming, folks, some of us will see it if the Lord doesn't come this year. But the day is coming when it will be a hate crime to say what this book says. And it's right up on us now. It's right up on us now. And, the Antichrist, he's ready, and so the second beast is getting everything ready for him. Several years ago, they started rewriting the Bible. They've got a gender-friendly Bible where there's no he's or she's. They took all that out because that hurt somebody's feeling. You can't be calling them he's or she's. You can't be calling them husbands and wives. All that's gone. No, folks. In the beginning, he that made them male and female. And you know what? The Democrat Party made all the other genders. That's just true. That's just the truth. God just recognizes two genders, folks. Just two genders. But see, that's bringing everything into the foundation of what we're walking right into with our eyes wide open and not seeing. We're entering into that time when if you're going to be a Christian in the eyes of the world, you're going to teach what the world says. You and me going to turn out to be haters. I mean, that's just the truth. And so many of the mega churches, and I'm not against mega churches. I wish we had every bench in here full and folks on the outside. But so many of the mega churches had got to be mega churches by bringing in everything and saying, hey, you're all right like you are. You're on your way to heaven. Let me tell you that you can go to heaven like you are. Hey, that sounds good, doesn't it? I ain't got to do nothing but just show up down there on Sunday and I'm going to heaven. I'm going to heaven. But I saw this week a clip to show you how we've left Jesus out of so much. And I've listened to this guy, and he's got some good stuff. That's what deception does. It'll give you enough good stuff to get you suckered in. But he told the guy that was interviewing him that he wished that he could get by with just shooting folks that wasn't tithing in his church and putting them all in the grave behind us. Just dig a big hole and throw them all in it. He said, because they're robbing God. Now that sounds like Jesus to me, don't you? Just shoot them. And I guarantee you, he wasn't worried about them robbing God. He's worried about robbing him. Because he needs a new plane. But see, folks will teach storehouse tithes, and they don't have a storehouse. You ever notice that? Bring all your tithes into the storehouse. When that was written, folks, they had a storehouse. And the tithes was to feed the Levites, which did the work of God. They weren't allowed to do work. They did the work of God. And the tithes was brought in, and they had a storehouse. They brought in the tithes of the grain, the tithes of the animals, everything. And it was to feed the hurting in the congregation and the family of God, and to take care of the Levites who took care of God's business. That's what it was for. But yeah, he said, hey, I just wish I could shoot them and get by with it. I just shoot them and put them in a hole in the back. Folks, this is the spirit. This is that spirit of the second beast. It's going to make the Antichrist God. And this guy, I guarantee you, he is multimillionaire already. But hey, don't withhold your tithes, because you stealing from me is what he meant to say. I need a new plane. I need a new limousine. Again, that's is getting the focus on you and not on the work. Hey, folks, it doesn't. I mean, I'm an old man, and I don't know how much longer I got here if the Lord tarries. But it's not about the message. This is the last time I preach to y'all. Remember this. It's the message. It ain't got a thing to do with the messenger. Just remember the message. But if it's not teaching the doctrine of Christ, folks, it's this spirit that is pushing folks into deception. And we must learn to separate truth from the fable. And like I said, this guy's got some good stuff. And that's what deception does. It suckers you in with the good stuff. Looks like the lamb. It looks like the lamb until you are so focused on, hey, he's got to be doing God's work. Look how prosperous he is. He's got to be doing God's work. And then you begin to hear him talk like the dragon. See? And it's happening all over. It's happening all over. But the time is coming, folks, and we're facing it right. I mean, hey, it could be happening before next year. It's according to how this election goes. But the time is coming when if you don't go along with Islam and Buddhism and all these other isms and schisms as being equal with Christianity, then you're going to be a hater. And you're going hey, they will take away the tax exemption first, and then they'll be coming for you and me. If you say a murder, homosexuality is wrong, and if you say abortion is killing babies, then you'll be a criminal. And folks, I have to say it because it's in this book. I don't have any. See, that's the only thing about being a true Christian. You ain't got nothing else you can preach. You ain't got nothing else. What are you going to preach? See, every other religion, and like I say, true Christianity is not a religion, but every other religion can change what it teaches and still claim to be who it is. But true Christianity can't. Because if you get off from what Christ is teaching, you're no longer true Christianity. That's right. See, so we don't have another message. We're following our leader. We're teaching what he teaches, or we're not Christian. And folks, I mean, now I know folks are going. Folks say, "Well, hey, you can't be judging." Yes, I can. Didn't the Bible say that judgment begin at the house of God? I'm not judging saying you going to hell, because I don't want anybody to go to hell. But I am judging between right and wrong. If you can't say what's right and what's wrong, you might well shut up. Might as well just shut up. But folks, that's that little feel good stuff. That's that little sweet Christianity that we've got going on now. And see, this false prophet, he's not going to be without power. Look at this. Look at verse 12. 13, verse 12. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from the heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceives them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles. Do you see that? Which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast that had a wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many that would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. You see that? He's going to kill off all the haters. All those that won't admit that the Antichrist is God. Hey, they're the one that's going to stand in the way. So, you know, that's the same thing that's the same message that Hitler sold the German people against the Jews. No, you know, he told them that all their problems was caused by the Jews. And people who had lived beside Jews all their life and were friends turned on the Jews to the point that they would sell them out to die, to get them killed, folks. To get them killed. It's the same spirit, folks. It's the same spirit that is going to bring the Antichrist into power. And it's going to let this false prophet rise up. And like I say, he's on his way. But the spirit is working already. The spirit that he's going to be using is working already. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, that him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And some of y'all may have saw this the other day. Y'all see that? It was a little video. It was on Facebook the other day, where this scientist had helped develop this chip. And when he developed the chip, he wasn't Christian. He never heard anything about Revelation. But he said, well, they would spend millions of dollars developing this chip that would put all, that could be traceable, and trace everybody in America, everybody in the world. And he said that they told him that it had to have a battery that would recharge itself, so you could put it in one time, and they could trace you from now on. So he said that, the battery they come up with recharged by heat. And he said when they begin to study to find out where the best place would be, he said they give us $1 million grant to figure out where the best place would be to put this chip. And he said it was in the forehead or in the right hand. And he said, when he became a Christian and began to read this, he said, my God, I didn't do this, did I? But he has. He helped do this right here. But he said, hey, they give us $1 million to figure out, where was the best place in the body that would generate heat. He said, we could have asked mothers and they'd all told you. He said, you see mothers checking for the fever of a child, said they don't grab him by the foot. They put their hand on his forehead. And he said, right at the hairline is the place that generates the heat the quickest, and in the right hand. You'd think that this was not inspired, folks. Hey, when John wrote this, there was no way to make a chip that could follow everybody. No way. And he said, so he said he helped develop this thing, but you can't buy or sell without the chip. You ever wonder why now so many places in America want you to use the card? Get in your mind that, hey, we can't use the money, use your card. And soon the card will say, we can't use your card, use the chip. Everything will be done. And hey, you can't trace paper money much. I mean, you can go buy stuff with paper money. They don't know who bought it. But hey, if you got a chip that everything you buy is registered, they know what you bought, and they know where you're at every time, at every moment. Hey, we got phones now that apps on them that'll set up and tell you where everybody else is. But the chip will come along and it will tell the Antichrist where you are. There will be no hiding if you got the chip. No hiding. But let me tell you something, folks. Either, like I say, we don't have to believe this stuff, but we're going to live it if we don't go out here on the first boatload. We're going to leave it. So if you've decided, and you know people who decide, tell them this if you're talking to folks. I think everybody here is saved this morning. I hope you are. If you're not, hey, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. But if you're talking to folks, we need to tell them this. If you have decided that you're not going to accept Christ, then you better be figuring out where you're going to hide for 7 years, because they'll be coming for you then. You'll either take the mark of the beast, or they will be coming for you. And there's folks that I guarantee you that's in church this morning, hearing the true gospel of Christ, that is putting this off as close as we are. Hey, and this is not something that is coming. This is something that is here. We just hadn't got the man to step forward yet. But the Spirit is here and it's working. And He'll deceive them by the Spirit. And hey, let me just ask yourself this. He said He could call fire down from heaven. What if some church in Mumford this morning, if their pastor walked out in the yard and called fire down? How many folks do you think would be over there tonight wanting to see if he could do that again? I mean, I don't care what he's preaching. If he does this, if he called fire down from heaven, folks would line up. And you can see right now how folks will line up. Hey, this vaccine that's coming out to cure COVID. You watch how folks lines up for the vaccine. And I'm not against vaccine, but folks, this is being pushed through way too fast. And I'm gonna say this: it's gonna kill people. It will wind up killing people. Trying to find a cure. Hey, let me tell you a cure. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. He's still the cure. But this Spirit is already here. It's already working. But now we're being encouraged to use the card for everything. You can go to Walmart. They just got a couple of things that'll take a couple of cashiers that can take a cash. Until the other day we went to get our car washed. No, you had to have a card. I ain't gonna use no card. I know, but I found somebody that would take cash, right now. But the time, hey, look, will you really understand what's gonna mean when there is no cash? If there is no cash, you can't make extra money. You can't go out there and do a little work on the side for somebody because there is no cash. It'll all have to go through the computer. So this is what it's coming, and it's not just here, folks. It's worldwide. And it's just like this rioting and stuff. Hey, it's a plan. It's to get folks so confused. It's to get folks so tired of all this junk that they will accept anything to get out of it. But hey, if you look on TV, it's worldwide. They're protesting worldwide because this is a worldwide thing. And there's a man that's going to step forward out of the chaos and say, "I got the answer." And the world will flock to him because they'll already be primed by the religious spirit that is working right now. See, we've even come to the place where, we don't, but I hear it all the time where folks are talking about revival. We're going to have revival. Well, has God said it's time for, we know it's time for revival. I'm praying for revival. But I can't schedule a revival without God. You can't. You can have a series of gospel meetings. We have got a denomination that just dropped the talking about revival, and that's what they say. Come on down and be with us. We're having a series of gospel meetings. But hey, we need revival. But and folks is talking about, hey, we're going to have revival. Well, if we're going to have revival, we better get in touch with God. We better get in touch with God to start with. Now, and I'm going to tell you what, He'll still send us one when we really get ready for one. And you've heard me say this before. A few years ago, the best one I ever saw was on a football field. It was so hot. Brenda was there. It's so hot you couldn't hardly stand it. Them old bleachers would burn you when you sit on them. Full up every night. People got saved. People got healed. Little lady got healed of leukemia. But the men that planned it on 5 nights, and just shut her down. And I went to the guy and said, "Hey, you can't shut this down." "Oh, that's all we planned for. We'll have it again next year." That's been how long now, Brenda? Yeah. See? Because when you shut the door on God, it didn't happen next year. You could have had another series of gospel meetings, but God was showing up over there. And they had different denominations preaching every night. And what they probably, and every one of them was preaching this, Jesus. Every one of them got in that one mind and one accord. They preached Jesus. We had, it was every night. Them old bleachers was hot, but folks came because God came. God showed up and folks got saved and folks got healed. Hey, He's still in the business, folks. Let me tell you something. Just keep this in your mind. When somebody comes by, and they will, you'll have folks coming by. You need to come over here, this is happening. You need to come over there, this happening. Check with the book and see if what's happening is lining up with the Spirit of God and with Jesus. Because if it's not, we don't even need to start fooling with it, folks. Now, there's a church going out of here. And this is the good news. There is a church going out of here. And God's promise to that church over in the Church of Love over in Revelation 3, Church of Philadelphia, he said, is this: because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation which shall come upon all the world. The curtain is beginning to rise on the coming world order or disorder. So I know this: as that curtain rises, there's another one beginning to rise. I guarantee you that the angel in heaven is excited, probably more excited than we are right now at the closeness of the time. Because the church is, and again, they will come along and say, hey, you gotta go through the tribulation, so don't worry about no rapture. You gotta go through the tribulation. No, you don't. But there is a rapture coming, folks. There's one doctrine going out, one church going out here. That's the born again believers. And see, you have to be careful when you say that, because folks will say, oh, they think they're the only one saved. No, I think the only one saved is the ones that went by Calvary. I think that's the only one saved. And if you ain't the blood-bought church, you're not going in the rapture. And if you're not looking for the rapture, you ain't going in the rapture. And I was talking to a guy right here. He came to Bible study. And he said, oh, it don't matter. He said, I don't believe in the rapture, but it don't matter, because if it happens, I'll go anyway. No, you won't. Well, that's like saying, I don't believe in healing, but if I'm sick, I'm going to be healed anyway. No, it takes faith in what God has said, folks. What God has said, and I just read where the church that Christ established, the Church of Love, is going to be taken out of here from this hour of temptation, folks. And folks, we may not be here this time next year. I'm looking for this year in Jerusalem. Are you ready to see the King? I'm ready to see the King. We sing that song, oh, I want to see him. I want to see him for myself. Hallelujah.